trial against disgraced South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh is on their morning break, but that's okay because we have a lot to talk about. And with us right now in Walterboro, outside of that courthouse, is Law and Crime correspondent Gigi McKelvey. Gigi, it's great to see you. Now, I want to talk about the main issue that's been happening, because the main issue that's been taken up is Agent Croft's testimony today, and it's been about the police interview that he conducted where Murdaugh may or may not have said, "I did him so bad," referring to his son, Paul. Now, after listening to the slowed down version, very, very slow version, the slowed down version, what are your thoughts? How did the jury react to hearing that?
Good morning, Jesse. That seems to be the piece of testimony everybody was waiting on. And it's become the new, is the dress gold or blue? It's the big debate. The jury really was intrigued with that. They were listening. They had their ears turned when it was slowed down to, 1/3 speed, actually. And Special Agent Croft doubled down and said, "I heard I." To where in the courtroom, after that happened, everybody kind of looked at each other, and it seems to be split what people are hearing. I heard they, but the jury, you could tell they were all into that 1/3 speed being played and were listening as hard as they could.
You heard they. I've spoken to people who say they heard I. And I've been of the opinion that even if you hear I, what does it mean? First of all, maybe he was so exasperated, right, that he didn't even know what he was saying. But let's say he said I. It could have been, right? It could have been, yeah, I killed them. Oops, shouldn't have said that. Or maybe it was, I failed him. Maybe I failed to protect him or something like that. Croft was on the stand the whole morning, Gigi. What else stood out to you? What were some of the big points that were elicited from his testimony?
I think some of the things that stood out was the fact that some things just weren't documented, like the clips that were found in the car. They weren't fingerprinted. He didn't even write down the statement that Alec made saying I or what he heard. And it seems to me that they just have missed a few steps. In fact, his mother's house wasn't even searched until September, which is well after the murders. He went there the night of the murders. You would think that would be a place they would go very quickly to see if any evidence was disposed there. So little things like that have stood out to me this morning and to a lot of people in the courtroom of things that did not happen in the investigation right off the bat that probably should have.
And I'm curious, I have a couple of follow-up questions for you in terms of also who's going to be expected to take the stand today. Before we get to that, I just want to ask you real quick. There was so much made back and forth with Croft about, remember, the prosecution's theory is, right, we don't have the murder weapons, but if you look at the ammunition that was by the bodies, you can match it up to the other ammunition that was on the property, put two and two together, it looks like the family weapons were the murder weapons, but the defense was fighting back on that. Can you explain to us how, what stood out to you there? What were the big points?
Well, I think the big points are you just don't have the murder weapons. I mean, you can have these shell casings all over the property, but if you don't have the gun that killed Maggie, then that can introduce problems in the state's case. So there's no doubt that ammunition was all over the place, even on the stoop outside the house, at the gun range, all over. But that's going to be a big argument, I think, on the defense side, is you can have this ammo everywhere, but you don't have the murder weapon to compare it to.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Is it part of their case? Does it make sense that if he were to kill his family, those were the weapons that he would use? Sure. I'm still of the opinion someone else could have used it. Now, who else do we expect on the stand today? I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question. Are we going to see or hear that video that has been teased by the prosecution from Paul's phone that suggests minutes before the shooting, you can hear Alex Murdaugh basically placing him at the scene right around the time of the murders? You think we're going to hear that today?
That's kind of the word on the street, is that may come in, and that is something everybody is waiting on. That video, as well as the Snapchat, which I think will be later on. But everybody's waiting on this video that places him at the kennels where he said he was not earlier in the evening. This video disputes that, so I think it's going to be a little bit of a devastating moment for the defense when this is played.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing we're going to hear. But let me ask you this. Other than that cell phone video, who else do we want to hear? We have a list. There's a witness list. Who else haven't we heard from that we think might be called either today or in the coming days?
Well, we've heard cousin Eddie may be testifying sometime this week. I guess it depends on the pace of the trial. So he's the next witness that everybody is very curious to hear from. What is he going to say?
And explain to everybody real quick who this guy is, because this is just, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, Curtis Eddie Smith is the distant cousin of Alex Murdaugh, who was there at the roadside shooting and was charged with his role in that. Also, apparently in on some of these drug dealings. And Alex Murdaugh, we know, had written him $2.4 million in personal and cashier's checks over a period of time. So he's in deep with Murdaugh, and maybe we'll find out just how deep when he takes the stand.
Somebody said to me, you know, Gigi, wow, you know, that theory that's put forward by the prosecution. I'll ask you this. The prosecution hasn't been able to fully explore what the motive is, right? The motive being that Alex Murdaugh's life was crumbling. All of his financial misdeeds were about to be unearthed as a way to distract from that, going to kill his family, gain sympathy. People said, wow, that's such a ludicrous motive. Well, also is the allegation that you hire a hitman to kill you so that the insurance proceeds go to your surviving son. So what's outside the realm of possibility? Let me ask you this real quick, though. That motive, did we get any sense from the judge about how much the prosecution is going to be fully able to explore all of those alleged financial crimes?
I think those are motions that still are going to be ruled on as that becomes relevant later on in the trial. We just don't know how much of the roadside shooting or the financial crimes are going to come in. But I do think that they are somewhat relevant. But as far as motive, like you say, a lot of people here think that the motive that the prosecution has set forth is kind of weak. That seems to be the word on the street here with everybody, just in chatter.
Well, I mean, and if you remember with the defense in their opening statement, they said you're going to see a video from 1 hour before the shootings where Alec and Paul are happy and smiling. And then you're supposed to believe an hour later that he brutally murders his son. Hey, listen, I've seen cases before where horrific killings come out of nowhere, but it is something to think about. Gigi McKelvey, thank you so much. I was going to say, like I said to Ann Jeanette, it looks like you're reporting from outside the White House. I was going to ask you about Biden's schedule today, but you are not. You are outside the courthouse and doing great reporting for us as always. Gigi, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, so I mentioned that slowed down version, that really slowed down version of the what Murdaugh may have said about his son. Let's hear that in real time. This is from earlier today.
Well, I would like to play it again at 1/3 speed to slow it down. It's just the same. Thank you.
I reject playing it at 1/3 speed. When the foundation laid for who's manipulating it, how it's being manipulated. I think obviously we have it in real time, but there would have to be some additional foundation.
Please play at 1/3 speed.
And sitting here talking today is tough. It's just so bad. It's so bad.
Did you hear they then?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. You would agree the jury gets to decide what he said on that tape. That's the best evidence.
I agree that they get to hear the tape and make their own mind up as to what he said. Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have on that. Now, I said the date August 11th. You said you weren't sure, but there was another interview with Alex Murdaugh. Came to the SLED Low Country office, and you and Agent Owen sat down and interviewed him, correct?
That is correct.
Nicole, what do you think? I or they? Has it changed at all? Nicole, I think you might be muted.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry about that. And I think as you pointed out earlier, it's going to be a debate. And I bet that there will be jurors back in the jury room debating the very same topic. And even if there are jurors that believe that the answer is I think there are still questions as to exactly what on earth that meant. And what we don't have is any follow-up whatsoever from the detective. And if that's really what he thought it was, I think that we might have such follow-up. And so the jury is left to wonder and guess about what it means.
Right.
And I think that this defense team will argue you just can't guess these things in a case like this.
Nicole, how much do you think Alex Murdaugh is directing his defense team? He's a lawyer himself. You see him talking to his counsel. Even at one point, he said, I didn't say that, what was said on tape. So you tell me how much you think he's involved here.
Well, it seems that these lawyers are very capable on their own. Right. And we've all heard the phrase that a person who represents themselves has a fool for a lawyer. And I think that Murdaugh may be very aware of that. And what you do want is to collaborate with your defense lawyers. And it appears that that is what he is doing.